Welcome back, everyone. Now it's over to hybrid and virtual event specialist, content writer, author and lecturer Paul Cook, who will be discussing the future of venues in 2021 with panellists James Reed from Excel, Michael B. Lee from Marina Bay Sands and Kaaren Hamilton from the RLH Corporation. Over to you, Paul.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm absolutely delighted to be here, to be working with IBTM again, and to be on TV. I made it on TV. Think about that. And before we get going with the panel, and it is a powerhouse panel that we've got for you today, I really want to ask you, as people at home, in the office, wherever you happen to be, you've taken the time to come along and to be part of this. Please don't be quiet. Send us in your questions, and you can do that quite easily by going into the chat box that's on the side of your viewer and just typing in the question that you have. Send it through, and I'll get through as many of those as I possibly can before the end of the session. We've got a few minutes yet, so that's really good. And I think, I want you involved, because the more that we're in this together, the better it's going to be for everybody. So, and I also want to thank a few people for their contributions even before we got here today. So we've got people like Miguel Neves, Fiona Pelham, Sam Allen, James Morgan, Abby Cannons and others that have given me some thoughts and some questions about where this session could go. So the introductions, first of all, we have Mike Lee. Now, Mike Lee is the Vice President of Sales for Marina Bay Sands, and he's based over in Singapore. Hi, Mike. And I looked at the temperature earlier today, and I found that it was in the region of late 20s, early 30s. So you've got a bit of sun, a bit of sparkle over there. So we're deeply envious. Closer to home, in London, James Rees, delighted to welcome you. James is the Executive Director of Conference and Events at Excel London. And there's a huge amount going on at Excel, and there has been for the last 20 years, or ever since they started, when it was a mere speck in somebody's imagination. So welcome, James. And then Kaaren Hamilton. Kaaren is with us. She's over in New York. And basically, it's a very early start for Kaaren to get up today to be with us. So grateful for that. And Kaaren is the Vice President of Global Sales in the RLH Corporation. So all of these people, I said it was a powerhouse panel, and it really, really is. There is so much experience in this panel in terms of experience around events and venues, but also life experience and business experience as well. So let's really use that when you send the questions in. But the red thread that I'd like to plant right at the start today, this is a collaborative panel. We're in this whole issue of how we come out of COVID with venues and events and everybody that works in it. So I really want us to be thinking about how we can all share and learn from each other. And whilst we may not be physically together, the miles have vanished by the means of this great technology that we've got. And the three key talking points that I want to focus on as we go through are they're my three Ps. The first is perception. The second is partnership, and the third is about the planet. And I think if we keep all of those in mind as we go through, we're going to have a great discussion. So thank you for being here. And now on to the panelists. Now, I decided not to try to explain what your venues and what your organizations do, because you are the people right at the heart of that. So what I'd like you to do is just give me a little snapshot of what you do at the locations that you're based. So, Mike, can you tell us what is Marina Bay Sands? What's that all about? What have you got going on there?
Well, Marina Bay Sands is an integrated resort. We are located in Singapore. An integrated resort actually was first created by this property. I'd like to say that we came up with the term, but it was really the government of Singapore that kind of tagged it, and of course that's been popular. We're integrated resort simply means we've just got everything you would want to have under one roof. We've got we own and operate our own museum. We have some probably a total of some close to 80 restaurants, of which 14 or 15 are celebrity chefs and specialty restaurants. We've got 2,500 rooms. We've got what we consider a very iconic sky park, which the world has come to recognize. We're quite proud to be part of what we consider maybe the one of the best destinations MICE venues that there are. We've got over 1 million square feet of space. So it's an integrated resort. We have everything, and we are very varied. I could keep going for your whole show, but I don't want to take all that time away from the other panel.
Just a little snapshot, Mike. That's brilliant, and it's for the people that are not familiar with you know, we're in our own backyard. We know our things really well, but I want to make sure that everybody's got a good sense of that. So that's brilliant. And James, coming to you at Excel. Excel has grown so much over the years. What does it look like right now today? How would you describe it?
Well, you can see the imagery behind me. I'm not sure we have the quite the blue skies today that the image shows, but Excel London, which is really the prime convention and exhibition centre in the UK, in our capital city, is a great private sector investment story. The old Royal Docks, which with the change in trade from shipping to containerization, which meant the old docks became run down. It's a massive regeneration project. And so the site here at Excel now, like Mike, we have 1 million square feet of great world-class convention and exhibit space. We sit on a 100-acre campus now with hotels, bars, restaurants, all part of that integrated campus. And we now have an inventory of clients, both exhibition, trade and consumer show clients and congress clients, who deliver some of the world's best events in our city, in our venue. The upside of all of that, if we think about the importance of our industry, is that Excel now supports just short of 40,000 jobs when it's fully operational. Both direct and indirect, and now contributes £4.5 billion annually to the UK economy, with 4 million visitors coming through our doors each year. So part of what I'm sure we'll be talking about today is how we go from the shutdown, if you like, in March this year to getting back to that economic powerhouse generator that Excel London is.
Absolutely. And I think that's an amazing figure, isn't it? £4.5 billion sterling going into the UK economy. I mean, that is just, it takes a little while for those kind of figures to resonate, and all of those jobs that are being created. And I know that Kaaren, over in New York, you're talking to us, you're coming to us from there, but you're not a venue or a destination as such, but you are providing all sorts of jobs through the RLH Corporation. So can you tell me what you do and how that works?
Sure. Thanks, Paul. And I have to apologize for my camera not being on. My connection isn't as strong as the tech team would like this morning. So yes, I'm VP of Global Sales for a hotel company, and we operate 1,000 hotels under 7 brands, predominantly in North America. And, you know, as you can imagine, hotels are really, significant venues for meetings, and especially self-contained. And our brands specifically really accommodate many of the small meetings, which is the bulk of the meetings industry. So meetings and events are certainly a huge part of our overall business.
Brilliant, brilliant. So that is really useful to give all of our viewers and people that haven't come across what you guys do, exactly where you are and where you're coming from. And we've got a lovely spread across the globe, and we've got a lot of senior folk there as well. So I want to start off with the whole issue around perception. COVID came along. COVID gave us all a bloody nose, I think it's fair to say. It's put a stranglehold on events in all sorts of ways. yes, we have the virtual events and we have some mini hybrid events, but I want to find out where we are now. So Mike, if I come to you first, in terms of what does it look like when people are coming to Singapore? What's the kind of safety measures that you guys have got in place now and are set to continue in 2021?
Sure. Well, we have, as I mentioned at the entree, we're fortunate we're in Singapore. Singapore is an extremely clean, healthy environment. They always have been. And there are a couple of things that have happened for Marina Bay Sands. Singapore has certified us as an SG clean, and many of this audience may not know what that means, but it's also been certified by Bureau Veritas, who they probably have heard of, a 200-year-old company. Those have certified Marina Bay Sands, certified us as really healthy, really safe, and really protecting the environment. As countries are reopening, everybody's focused more on the health and safety of their programs. So that's what we're very proud to be focused on that and able to deliver it.
Brilliant. And Kaaren, I just want to come back to you. Because you've got a franchise model of hotels and lots of different moving parts in there, who is responsible for the safety of all the guests? Is that down to the owners of the hotels, or is it down to you as the corporation? Because how does it work?
Well, I think if we go back to March or April, the hotel industry in general reacted very quickly, and most of the large brands published their COVID plans, all visible on their website. So if I talk about our company, our plan is based on recommendations from the World Health Organization, the CDC, combined with, and very importantly, state and municipality guidelines. So we pushed a plan down to all of our hotels, conducted training, as large brands all did, and our operators had to quickly put together a published plan that.
Okay, so I think we may have lost Kaaren just briefly there, but in the. I'm going to move just back to James for a moment whilst we get Kaaren back. Do you think now, James, that everybody is basically a bit of a risk manager when they're just out and about in their general day-to-day life, and how that gets reflected back to what they may be like when they're at events? Are we all risk managers now?
I think we have to be, but in fact, we always have been. Before COVID was a thing, risk management and the health and safety and well-being of both our visitors, our clients. I mean, Mike and Kaaren we'd all be the same. It's top of your agenda every step of the way. So this is part of the challenge of COVID is we're dealing, as the industry does, with a challenge that's in front of us. One of the great things, I think, why so many of us are part of this industry often for our whole careers, or for many years at least, is that ability for an industry to adapt and to manage the shocks of either economic impacts or others. And Mike's given a great example of a destination that has been able to open up, and I've seen, and I've been privileged to be part of one of Mike's great events. So via the power of the hologram from London. So as an industry, we're already in pockets around the world. We're doing great things, and we're managing those risks and providing the comfort, if you like, to those attending the events to make sure people feel safe and secure. It may be something we come onto in this discussion. The future is going to be around shared risk, shared management of risk for future contracts, etc. I won't go into that detail now. But as examples, a direct example in London, where we have restrictions on at the moment, or certainly since March, we've been restricted on business events. But from August, we were allowed to open certain sectors and industries. So, as an example, Excel has opened its doors to both educational exams, which are permitted, and also to the film industry. And the film industry, certainly in the UK, from March, when it went into total lockdown, had this pent-up demand of studios all around the world and the UK wanting to run and to get their filming back on track. So we've been able to take advantage of that, and we've seen significant business right through the autumn, and we have 3 studios in different spaces as we speak, shooting. Organizations like some of the Hollywood studios, Netflix have shown interest. So adaptability, and we've managed the risk. Back to your original question, we've managed that risk in a very professional way, as you'd expect of our industry. I think that's one of the frustrations we've seen as an industry, is government not recognizing that we're actually the best, or one of the best, at dealing with these issues. And I'd much rather go into a COVID secure venue in Singapore or London or the USA or wherever, to a certain extent, than a DIY store down the road where I don't know who is attending. People do or do not obey the rules, etc. That's how we manage risk, because as attendees to events, we are generally rule obeyers. We do what we're told, don't we? So those are some thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. You're a man after my own heart. The idea of going to a garden centre, personally, just scares the life out of me on more than one level. But also because you don't know what people are doing, where they're going. And in venues, it's a lot easier in some respects to do that. But you've still got the issue, I guess, of human behaviour coming in. So I can walk down the road, and I will see that there will be people in a row that are together. They're all walking side by side, and they're not giving ground to anyone. And there may be other people that decide, well, actually, I've seen somebody come in there 3 miles away. I'm going to jump into the road to get out of their way just in case I get a bit too close to them. So we've got a lot of differences going on in terms of the way that we have with the behaviours of people. And I think that's kind of interesting for how we as an industry look at that and really say, okay, look, we're going to have these events. This is going to mean X, Y, and Z for us. And maybe we have to keep going with that for a while, even when vaccines are fully available. But I want to come to you, Mike, because I know that you had some pilot events, and I'm interested to understand what you learned from those pilot events. Were there things that surprised you about human behaviour? Because really, our industry is all about knowing what people are going to do and where they're going to go.
Sure. Well, the pilot events in Singapore, as the city and the overall meetings industry here is trying to come back to where we used to be. We did 3 pilot events, and we at Marina Bay Sands were very pleased that we were here for and hosted the Singapore International Energy Week as well as Travel Revive. Singapore International Week was more of a show where we didn't have that many physical attendees. We had a lot of virtual attendees. The Travel Revive, we did that on a test basis with probably had 1,000 total. We had there was a trade show involved. What we learned was that while this was the Singapore government trying to be sure that a pilot event could ensure us opening up for the balance of the industry, that we could do it in a way that would be safe. We today do not have the final results for Travel Revive because the Singapore government won't release that because they want to wait until 14 days after to be sure that there were no transmissions. The first 2 pilot programs had none. What that's doing is making the government a little more comfortable in allowing my hotel, me personally, and our customers to be able to get together so that we can form the path out of this together. It takes a lot from the organizers have to work with us to be sure that the programs and the safe distancing, the disinfection processes, that all those things are not done just by the venue, but by the venue and the event organizers to keep it. Somewhere in there, there's an answer to your question, I think.
No, I think that's really good. And I think you've really nicely brought us around to the whole idea of partnership, which is where we wanted to get to. Because I do wonder if we are as good as we can be when it comes to working together as venues and organisers, and everybody else in as well, in terms of suppliers of services and trade publications and everybody that's got an impact on our industry. And what I saw over recent months was there might have been a little bit of this is better than that and we're better than this and this. And I think those days are kind of gone now. I think we really need to all pull together as an industry even more than we've done so up to now. Because I think if we're going to come out of this and we're going to give business and people that send their clients across, their delegates to us, they have to have that faith that we're all on the same page. And something that struck me from one of the questions that came in from Anne, Event Anne, she's known in Denmark. She wrote, and she was quite passionate about the idea of partnership with venues and organisers getting together more. And she felt that there needed to be more done. Now, I'm never quite sure what more looks like, but I do wonder whether or not we might see a situation where we've got more kind of co-creation going on in terms of working with planners and venues when it comes to designing events, rather than maybe here is what we want, can you do this to a certain venue? What do you think? Do you think... Kaaren, if you're there, do you see planners and venues working more together to create experiences and events for clients going forward, or do you think that's a step too far?
No, I think you're headed in the right direction, Paul, and what I've seen, which has been a very positive outcome of the last 8 or 9 months, is that hotels especially have taken a much more sophisticated approach to really intimately understanding the stakeholders' objectives with the events, and we've really moved past this commoditization of the venue or the hotel as a venue. So, I've been really encouraged by the, amped up communication between both parties, because I think, as James talked about, it's the shared responsibility, and nobody wants to be in a situation where, there's any kind of a super spreader, right? So, I've seen a much more sophisticated level of partnerships. There's less business, right? And the business that is there for our hotels is very precious. And so the hotels having to work much harder to secure that. And then, once the business is secured, our hotels remained open and operating, and we continue to host small meetings based on whatever the local regulations are. But, we don't want to lose that business once it's on the books. So the hotels are working, much more closely, I think, with planners than I've ever seen in my career.
Brilliant. And do you think, I'm going to stick with you for a moment, Kaaren, if I may. I want to find out just how far that might be pushed. Do you think that we might ever, wearing any of your other hats and your experience over many years, not just where you are now, but could we get a situation where planners are actually vetted by venues and by hotels before they're enabled to bring a group to them? Are we going down that path now?
Oh, I think an experienced salesperson at the hotel level is absolutely doing that research as part of their qualification process on the business. Yeah, I mean, that is all part of the process. But I think that it goes back to the shared responsibility, and I think everybody wanting to ensure a positive outcome. What we found is really required to continue operating is to be able to portray and demonstrate confidence, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to have the confidence of the planner, but also the confidence of the attendee and the traveler. So it's required, as I said, a much more sophisticated level of selling, for sure.
No, brilliant. And I think that leads neatly into something that I know James has been talking about recently in terms of the delegate journey. Because whilst I might be very happy to come to a venue and to know that I'm in a good, safe surroundings and I can go to an event and that's all well looked after, my delegate journey isn't just that venue, is it? It's not just that piece. And maybe there are hotels as well that can make sure that my stay is great. But do we need to be doing even more than we're doing with transportation companies and others? Because the delegate journey may, for some people, begin when they click on a website to say, right, I want to go to that. Or maybe for others, it's when they shut the front door. But what do you think, James? Do you think that we need to be doing more as an event sector that is broadening out and really engaging with other transportation providers across the globe, that is?
Well, I think, can we do more? Yes. I think everyone is currently working on that. The inhibitor to Karen's point just now around confidence, attendee and organizer confidence, is going to drive the return of our business. Also linked to partnership, I'm seeing in recent times a much more open policy between venues and planners, and I think that is the way forward, to understand each other's needs, because ultimately we do need each other. We need the planners, the exhibition organisers to book our venues, but also those planners need our venues in order to host their business. Yeah. But what we're seeing, and with I'm president, as you know, of ICA, so having detailed discussions with a lot of the destination management professionals that are looking at how they restart their destinations. One of the inhibitors from that happening is large corporations with restricted travel policies and limitations on events that they can go to, because from a governance point of view, if they can't control 100% that journey, literally from their employee locking the front door and traveling to the airport or the train or the car or whatever and going to the hotel or going to the event, they are weighing up the risk of that to their employee, and so it's really incumbent on all of us to look at ways, and that is linked to, I think, more to the destinations than the venues, to providing a sort of a seamless channel, and that will also dictate which destinations are selected, because some will be better at that than others in the short term. So the challenge I see is that venues, we're talking about venues here, but venues are already really good at dealing with this. We know we can provide safe environments. We have all the processes, the hygiene, etc. in place to open up. It's the other elements that we need to now influence to then help that confidence to return.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think it's interesting you touched on destinations and how they might be chosen. One of the recent pieces of research that I saw from a lady called Emma Nolan recently was around how destinations are selected, and one of the issues around them was accessibility of visas. Could people actually get visas to go to certain parts of the globe? So some of the things that aren't always obvious are right there, always impacting on what we do. And in fact, over the years, I felt really quite sorry for you venues in many respects, because you know, you're always asked to do something new. First, it was disability discrimination, get all of that together. Then we had all the GDPR and the data protection. There's always something else going on. But I guess that's also the buzz as well. But one of the things that I think that COVID has done is it's enabled us to all press the pause button and just think about what we're doing and how we're doing events. And now that we've got virtual events and we've also got hybrid in the mix for all clients, that surely has to be a good thing as we look at that. Because the third of the P's that I've got here is the P for planet. And I think that whilst we're moving people around and there's a lot going on, that really, sustainability is probably right here, right now, got to be one of the key issues. I know that Fiona Pelham and co have been talking about this for many a moon, but I think probably now it's even more relevant than it's been, and I know that you guys are doing some great work on that already. But connected with that, we look at hybrid events, we look at holograms. So Mike, I'd like you to tell me a little bit more about what's going on with your hologram, how has that been received, and what are your plans for hybrid events in the future as well?
Well, we were, as you know, we were the first to build our own hybrid broadcast studio. And that was something, as we're always trying to stay in front on innovation, we had considered that before COVID, but COVID certainly accelerated that to where we have it now. It's been very successful. Shortly after we completed that, we expanded it into hologram, and it's been a tremendous experience for us and for the venue planners that we're working with. I think what it's doing is it's showing people, all the people on this call probably are not interested in having a future that is all pure virtual. But what the COVID-19 had a little bit of a silver lining in that it's forcing a lot of the venues and the hotels and the organizers to understand virtual better. And while we don't want to have a pure virtual environment, virtual is going to enable us with hybrid meetings to actually expand the audience, expand the reach, and expand the return that people can get from their programs. Because today maybe you only get 10 or 15% like we did in the hybrids, or excuse me, in the pilot events. You only get 10 or 15% physical presence and virtual filling in the rest. I think what will happen in a few years is the hybrid will enable people to have the same number of physical attendees and add to that in the future. I think we're not going to go back to the old normal, and we're certainly not going to stick with the new normal. We're going to have a different normal in the future that's going to combine the best of both worlds. These organizers were very, very reluctant previously to even consider virtual because they didn't understand it. And frankly, many of us in the venues and the hotels didn't understand it either. Now we have a working knowledge on how it works, what works, what doesn't work, so we can expand the business for them and for us.
Yeah, and that's got to be good for everybody, hasn't it? I mean, that's got to be good for whichever client you have across the board. And I think we're probably heading towards contactless being one of those things that is just going to predominate. In a few years ago, it was venues, can you make everything as Wi-Fi as possible, and it's got to be free Wi-Fi, and there was a big cry for that, and you guys delivered to that, and now we've got some exceptional bandwidths within destinations and within venues. But I think maybe now we're moving towards what can we eradicate, what don't we actually need anymore that can get out of our way. But we still need a good guest experience. So Kaaren, what would you say is regardless of the tech, regardless of where we are, what makes for a great guest experience, would you say?
My opinion, it's when we remove the friction for the traveler. So I think, over the last 8 months, we have seen some real advances in technology. I know you didn't want to go down that road, Paul, but, some things that we've been trying to do, I'll speak to my company. We were able to sort of catapult forward, like with contactless contactless check-in,
yeah,
and room keys on your phone, on your smart device. So we've made some real advances there. But when we talk about Planet, just going back to that for a moment, we've also slid backwards a little bit with some of the requirements that we've seen, right? So, we're using a tremendous amount of packaging right now to execute food and beverage, as an example. So I hope that those things are temporary.
Yeah, brilliant. So I would like to thank all of you for a brilliant, insightful discussion that we've had. There's been a number of comments coming through on the wire, and I've had a quick look at those. I've made sure that they were immersed in the discussion that we've had. I think it's great that we've been able to meet even with all of those miles between us and come together for this session for IBTM TV today. So my heartfelt thanks to all of you and to IBTM TV.
Great. Thank you, Paul, for a lovely session. So, as you said, all the questions were covered. So I hope that's answered the questions you had. If you've got any comments that you want to add as well, send them through on the chat box as well. Keep the comments coming in. It's great to hear from you all. And I'm sure you're going to be flooding us with questions for our keynote speaker joining us after this short break. So we'll see you in a few minutes.